My name is Larry, Head of Business Development at IoTeX, and along with Dean, who's our head of our accelerator, we're going to be your hosts for today's programming. We're so excited to be back here in Austin. This is our third year in a row where we've done Real World in Austin. Say it with me. DePIN, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks, which connect real-world devices and infrastructure with digital economies on the blockchain. The reason why we're so excited about DePIN is it has the opportunity to fundamentally change how our world operates by empowering everyday people to contribute and own the infrastructure that powers our everyday lives. We're creating new public utilities that are owned by the people, for the people. From renewable energy, to wireless connectivity, to GPUs and compute, to data centers and storage, to transportation, to geopositioning and more, DePIN is transforming the world's most critical industries and making them more secure, transparent, and equitable. Right now, we're at an incredibly important crossroads in society where we can choose to maintain the status quo, where centralized entities run our world, or we can shatter the status quo and build a better world where everyday people like you and me are in control. It's time for change, and it's time for DePIN. Since 2017, IoTeX has been a pioneer of the DePIN sector, building the leading platform to connect real-world devices to blockchain applications. From day one, we believed that devices and machines are actually going to be the biggest users of blockchains. There's over 100 billion smart devices in the world, and they will all be connected to blockchains in the future to create a more equitable future. Each year, we see our original dreams turning more and more into reality. IoTeX is now the home to some of the most innovative DePIN projects in the space, utilizing our device identity, verifiable compute, and scalable base layer blockchain to build incredible user-owned device networks. So we're excited to share today the future of DePIN with you alongside our partners and our friends. Throughout today's event, we're going to cover a lot of topics. We're going to talk about the modular infrastructure that's empowering DePINs. We're going to explore some of the awesome DePIN and AI projects building on IoTeX and other platforms. We're going to hear from some of the OG DePIN projects in the space on their journeys to where they got today. And finally, we'll dive into the investing landscape with some of the top DePIN VCs, a jam-packed schedule which we hope you'll enjoy. We have an awesome showcase room to my left where you'll find a lot of people showcasing their projects in action. And to our right, we're going to have an awesome Texas barbecue around 7 p.m. sponsored by our friends from GeoNet. I hope through today's event, you'll be able to hear and meet some of the different types of people in the DePIN space. Some of them are going to have the same backgrounds as you, some of them won't. But I think that's the best part of the DePIN sector. Whether you're a hardware specialist, an industry expert, a smart contract developer, or a VC, or just someone that's interested in hearing new concepts about crypto, it truly takes a diverse set of people to make DePIN a reality. So thank you all for being here. And if you're new to DePIN, there's no better place than Real World than to get up to speed on everything happening in this space. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off with a short presentation about the modular infrastructure that's empowering DePIN today. Awesome. So my presentation today is about modular infrastructure for DePIN. What is DePIN? DePIN wasn't a term last year when we did Real World here in Austin. Messari coined this term, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks, which is defined as DePINs that utilize blockchain to coordinate and incentivize individuals to deploy and operate trustless, permissionless infrastructure in the form of hardware, sensors, servers, devices, etc. So to truly understand DePIN, we kind of have to understand what the centralized version of physical infrastructure networks is all about. So to kick off this presentation, I'm going to talk about the past, present, and future of physical infrastructure networks. Physical infrastructure networks today is everything that we see around us, the things that deliver energy to our houses, deliver water to our businesses, deliver all these different types of public utilities that make our world run. But the thing with centralized infrastructure networks is they utilize centralized physical resources which are orchestrated by centralized platforms where the value is captured by centralized entities. This is not just specific to the physical infrastructure network space. It's also relevant to social media, to finance, etc., which is honestly why we're all in crypto today, to see this change. Physical infrastructure networks today are making a step change past the physical infrastructure networks of the past. These physical infrastructure networks utilize decentralized physical resources, which are orchestrated by a mix of centralized and decentralized platforms, where the value today is partly captured by community contributors. And this is where DePIN is at today. We're starting to see more decentralized tech stacks being implemented in DePIN, but we're not fully there. What does the future of DePIN look like? The future of physical infrastructure networks are ones where decentralized physical resources are orchestrated by decentralized platforms where value is captured exclusively by community contributors. So we're on our journey to the future of physical infrastructure networks, and that's what DePIN is all about. You may see a lot of different types of applications today, from renewable energy to transportation to GPUs to content to storage, but all of these applications have common denominators. They need infrastructure that's decentralized in order to reach their full potential. So IoTeX has been focusing on building modular infrastructure for DePIN for the past 5 years, and we want to show you exactly what the full decentralized tech stack looks like. We've defined 9 key layers of technologies that form the DePIN tech stack. Unlike other types of dApps out there, which are built exclusively on the blockchain layer, DePINs need a lot of other things to make them work, right? You have to give devices on-chain identities, you have to process their data, you have to compute over that data to generate proofs, and then finally you have to settle those proofs to the chain. So these 9 layers we've defined is what I'm going to go through. Each of these layers is essential to creating a fully decentralized DePIN tech stack. Starting with the identity layer. Just like you have your own crypto wallet that defines your user identity on-chain, devices and machines also need on-chain identities. The identity layer is meant to manage the on-chain and off-chain identities for all the entities of a DePIN network, including smart devices, including users, and including the servers and nodes that they run on. Now that we have devices with identities, a lot of the devices you see today are not Web3 compatible. There's a hardware abstraction layer that's necessary to equip hardware with the technologies that they need to communicate effectively with decentralized infrastructure. So the hardware abstraction layer uses embedded SDKs to facilitate a wide range of smart devices, adding new cryptographic primitives to these devices so they can speak the same language as the databases and the back-end infrastructure that we'll talk about next. So these hardware devices, once they have identities and once they're equipped with these SDKs, will need to talk to the connectivity layer. This is basically how you transmit data from a device to a database. This can be your Wi-Fi, this could be your Bluetooth, your LoRaWAN. There's a lot of different types of connectivity that allow data to be transmitted from point A to point B. And there's a lot of decentralized versions of this happening. Helium is doing this for 5G. A lot of projects you'll see in there, in the showcase room, are doing this for wireless and Wi-Fi. But transmitting data over centralized connectivity mechanisms is not a fully decentralized tech stack, which is why the decentralized alternatives are so important. So the connectivity layer is bringing data from the device to different layers of the tech stack. Once you have this raw data blob, the device also needs to be formatted in a way that's understandable by these downstream layers. The sequencer layer, which is being worked on by projects like Metis and Espresso, is a way to sort these data packets into a time series, into something that's formatted so that it can be digested downstream by the data availability layer, which we'll talk about during our next panel. But the data availability layer is a layer that stores data temporarily for usage. It's kind of like your random access memory for your computer. This data availability layer is things that are ready to run algorithms over to turn raw data into a proof of real-world activity or a proof that a blockchain can ingest. The data availability layer also talks to the long-term storage layer. Filecoin's going to explain all about the long-term storage layer in our panel. But this long-term storage layer is able to store data for long-term retention, maybe this data is not being used immediately to generate a proof that's going to be settled on chain, but it's going to be persisted for a longer period of time for use cases such as data analytics or building collective intelligence about the real world. And this data can also be retrieved for off-chain use cases via APIs. Once we have data that's stored and available, the really important part of this is we have to compute over this data. Raw data is not important. The insight from the raw data is important. So the off-chain computing layer, WebStream is IoTex's off-chain computing layer. We basically take this sequenced data from the data availability layer, and we apply business logic on top of this data using zero-knowledge proofs in order to generate proofs of real-world activity. What did the device do in the real world, and why should the owner of that device earn tokens from a protocol? This can be the same thing for a wearables project. It can be the same thing for a GPU that you've rented. If you're not able to compute what the GPU did and contributed to the protocol, then it just remains as raw data. So the computing layer is extremely important. Once you have this proof of real activity, this is what's being settled to the blockchain layer. The blockchain layer, as we all know, serves as the anchor, the orchestration layer, and the tokenomics engine. So once you have these proofs of real world activity that are settled to the blockchain layer and the smart contracts that are deployed to the layer can effectively distribute tokens and cryptocurrencies to the owners of those devices. So going back all the way to the top of this stack, you can see how each of these layers either equips devices to be Web3 compatible or transforms this data from raw data to sequence data to available data, finally to a proof that could be ingested by the blockchain. So that is the full vision of what a decentralized tech stack for DePIN looks like. This concept isn't just for any one particular vertical in DePIN. As you can see, the DePIN landscape today is very, very broad. It stretches from things that are more like peer-to-peer marketplaces for digital resources to things like physical resources, more like sensor networks that gather different types of data, whether it's GPS data or weather data or automotive data, or on the digital resource side, we're talking about storage, compute, bandwidth, and GPUs. All these are under the umbrella of DePIN. And when we talk about the tech stack that all these applications need, all of them need to go through all these various layers that we've just defined in order to be truly decentralized. To put it a different way, the emerging categories of DePINs are, in my opinion, data, services, and resources. Data networks are kind of like distributed networks of sensors that measure real-world phenomena and turn them into digital data. In the past, we've seen a lot of projects like StepIn and Sweatcoin do walk-to-earn or X-to-earn types of activities, where you contribute your data and earn token incentives. We've also seen a lot of data marketplaces on-chain where if we aggregate all of our data that has a common denominator, such as weather data, we can aggregate them into a valuable data set and offer it to analytics or monetize that data and distribute the rewards proportionally to the people that help to create that data set with tokens. In the future, all of these data-focused DePINs aspire to be their own layer 2 chains, where they want people to launch applications on top of their data. Demo, for example, is an automotive D-app that aggregates a lot of data from different vehicles. Their goal, ultimately, is to launch a layer 2 chain and have other people build insurance D-apps or the Carfax of DePINs in a decentralized fashion. Another really interesting thing is when you start to aggregate data from different DePINs, we can start to run AI to better understand what is the relationship between weather data sets and transportation data sets. How does the weather affect renewable energy production? This kind of cross-DePIN AI use case may be a little further out in the future, but it really requires a neutral infrastructure like the ones IoTeX is building in order to aggregate this data and draw these relational insights between different types of data. Another really important emerging category of DePINs is services. Devices that not only produce data, but deliver services to humans or other machines. Right now, we're seeing a lot of in-person jobs being created, such as, if you need to charge your vehicle, there's a project in there called PowerPod that allows people to tap into user-owned electrical vehicle chargers where you pay in cryptocurrency and they earn cryptocurrency for offering you their electricity. A lot of these DePINs also focus on adding density to existing services. Helium is a great example of this, where there's all this 4G and 5G connectivity out there, but Helium will add density to the existing telecommunications networks and expand the density of these public utilities. In the future, the remote jobs are going to come out. All these devices are becoming more autonomous today. In the future, just like Tesla's robo-taxi network is going to come out, maybe there will be a DePIN app that will allow people to gather resources in a remote fashion, where you don't have to be in person in order to gather device services. And this really forms the foundation for a lot of automation use cases as well, where trusted devices can be orchestrated by blockchains in order to deliver services to humans. And finally, we have the resources category. This is a distributed network of servers or kind of cloud computing type of hardware that offer digital resources in a peer-to-peer fashion. We see a lot of this today in the GPU sector, where a lot of projects are aggregating GPU, CPU, storage, and offering that to others in peer-to-peer marketplaces, basically commoditizing digital resources and allowing them to be traded over the blockchain. In the future, we can probably see some of these resource networks function more like automated market makers that you see on a decentralized exchange. The pricing of these commodities in the form of digital resources will be able to be traded and exchanged in a decentralized fashion and also a composable fashion. And I think one last primitive that I want to mention is treating DeFi, is kind of category of DeFi for DePIN, where if you own a device that provides a service or a resource, you can buy or trade these devices, or you can lend and borrow these devices. They're almost like a fixed income bond, where if you lend the cash flow generating device to someone else on chain, you can basically gather their cash flows and enable a new DeFi economy on top of DePIN. So all of this that we talked about is mentioned in our inaugural DePIN report, which covers all of these 9 layers that we mentioned in detail. Our head of cryptography, Xinjin Fan, who's not here with us today, would be more than happy to talk to you about it or receive contributions about it. But hopefully that gives you a good understanding and a good foundation for all the talks that are coming up.